All right, let's take a quick introduction to the oscillator section of the synthesizer here. So, notice here we have a couple of different columns in the oscillator section. We have oscillator 1, oscillator 2, oscillator 3, noise, and audio in. Now, to get something from the audio in, we're going to have to plug in some kind of sound source here. If you purchased a real live analog synthesizer like this would have just a jack where you could plug in like a headphone, like a headphone jack, a 1/4-inch jack that you could plug in a guitar or another synthesizer or an electric piano, something like that. So we won't do too much with this because it's basically you're plugging in a different sound and then using the filter and the modulation to affect that other sound. It can get very complicated and make some really interesting sounds. So each oscillator is going to make sound only if it's on. So here's oscillator 1. I'm going to play middle C. All right, if I turn it off, it's not going to make a sound. Right? Notice it's hearing a note, but it's not making any sound. Oscillator 2 makes the same sound. Oscillator 3 makes the same sound. Let's just go through these buttons. Panning, we're very familiar with, right? We can move it back and forth. I'm just going to put it at 0 in the middle. The level, so each oscillator you can give its own specific volume. Each oscillator we can tune. You can tune it up or down by a few cents, or you can tune it up a whole fifth. That's as far as it goes on this. And again, it's hard to center on 0, so I'm going to double click and shoop. You can change full octaves. Okay, so right here it's going to sound middle C is going to be actual middle C, but if you wanted to have it go up an octave or down an octave, that's easy to do. Here is kind of the most interesting part of this part of the synthesizer is what kind of waveform are you making? And I'm going to make a separate video on this in audio, in Audacity, and I'm going to just show what they look like really close up. But this is a sine wave. It's a very hollow, kind of thin sound, right, that I've been doing so far. How about if I change it to a triangle wave? You can hear it's just got a little more interest to it, a little more harmonic content. You'll hear a little more high overtones. Okay, got a little, like a tiny little bit of a buzz to it. Sawtooth wave is this one. It's going to have a really buzzy sound. All right, and the square wave here is going to have, it's going to sound like a video game from 1975. So those are the different waves, and actually this synthesizer you can smoothly go between. So you can make like something that's halfway between a triangle wave. Make something that's like halfway between a sawtooth wave and this is called a square wave. Square wave is a specific kind of pulse wave. Okay. So anyway, if you listen really closely, you can hear the square wave has kind of a, it's like missing every other overtone, so it has kind of a very hollow sound to it. Kind of similar to a clarinet, but like an electric version of a clarinet. All right. Oscillator 2 is going to work exactly the same way. It has this button called sync here, and that's a little bit of a complicated thing. Basically, it allows you to change the tuning of this oscillator, but have it actually not leave the same pitch. I'll show you what I mean. I'll turn both of these on. They're both going to play the same sound, basically. Let's make them both half triangle, half square, half sawtooth. Okay. Now if I detune this, if I detune the second oscillator, okay, you can hear that it just moves the note up and down, and so you can hear it, the notes spread out. If I do a hard sync, what happens is that like it resets every time this goes through one wave cycle. It resets this oscillator, so it does this cool thing where it kind of doesn't actually go out of tune. It just kind of makes interesting, weird sounds. Combined with like certain filters and stuff like that, it can be a really interesting thing to do. So anyway, we'll leave that off, so it gives us a little more individual control. One more thing is Oscillator 3 has this keyboard track button. So if I listen to now, and I'll put this on with Oscillator 1. Okay, I'm going to turn this down a little bit. So watch what happens if I turn off keyboard track. No matter what I hit, this actually stays on that middle C. So you can tune exactly what note you want this to stay on by using this, or by changing the octave, right? But we're going to put this on keyboard track right now, and I'm going to turn that off. So that's the oscillator section. Those are the noises that this synthesizer creates from scratch. It will also create noise, which can sound like this. All right. Notice it's pointed to purple noise here. It might be hard to see. I'll zoom in. So it's got this deep purple kind of noise, and then blue and white and black and brown. It's kind of hard to tell what the colors are exactly, but all you need to know is that in the middle here, all the frequencies of white noise, like white noise is just basically every frequency altogether at the same time, so it doesn't really have a pitch. That's why it's also really good for blocking out noises, right? Because it just makes all the different frequencies. So the ones up here emphasize the high frequencies, and the ones down here emphasize the low, and then here in the middle it emphasizes every frequency the same. So pure white noise has every single frequency in it. Okay, if I move toward the brown noise, you'll hear it gets a little deeper. And if I move toward the top noise here, purple, it actually gets really hissy. So you get some serious ocean sounds there. Last but not least is this audio thing, audio in. And if we wanted to, we could have some other device here, and it would go into the audio in, and we could modulate that and change it using the synthesizer settings, but we're not going to. So that is our introduction. That's every single button and what it does in the oscillator section, and we'll experiment with that in a little bit.